كيف يؤثر تلوث المياه والهواء والبحار وتغير المناخ على الصحة في المنطقة العربية؟ ما علاقة جائحة كورونا العالمية بالبيئة؟ هل البلدان العربية على الطريق الصحيح لتحقيق الهدف الثالث من أهداف التنمية المستدامة؟ هذه بعض العناوين على جدول أعمال المؤتمر السنوي الثالث عشر للمنتدى العربي للبيئة والتنمية أفد، الذي يعقد افتراضياً بالتعاون مع الجامعة الأمريكية في بيروت. الصحة والبيئة في البلدان العربية 10 و11 تشرين الثاني نوفمبر 2020.
صباح الخير. Good morning to all. As we said yesterday, in virtual conferences we have the advantage, we have to start on time and to finish on time. So yesterday, the first day, was very accurate in this regard. Welcome you back today. أهلا وسهلا في اليوم الثاني للمؤتمر الثالث عشر للمنتدى العربي للبيئة والتنمية، الذي نقدم فيه التقرير الثالث عشر للمنتدى عن وضع البيئة العربية هذه السنة في موضوع الصحة والبيئة في البلدان العربية. بالأمس قدمنا بعض فصول التقرير، اليوم نقدم 3 فصول إضافية. في هذه الجلسة، وهي الأولى لليوم ولكنها الجلسة الثالثة في المؤتمر، نتحدث عن موضوعين معا: موضوع الصحة والمياه والصرف الصحي والنظافة، والموضوع الثاني هو البحار والمحيطات وأثرها على الصحة. لن أطيل، يدير الجلسة الدكتور وليد زباري. أعرف سريعا عن الدكتور زباري، جميعنا نعرفه. الدكتور زباري هو منسق برنامج المياه وأستاذ المياه في جامعة الخليج العربي في البحرين، وهو شارك في تقارير أفد منذ بدأنا إصدارها. الدكتور زباري يشاركنا من جامعة الخليج العربي في البحرين، هو سيتولى الجلسة، سيقدم المتحدثين. أهلا.
شكرا نجيب على التعريف. راح أتكلم بالإنجليزي، يمكن يكون لنا أسهل، سامحني نجيب. I would like to welcome you all for this third session of AFID conference on water, marine, environment and health. And let me start by the session by thanking AFID and its distinguished authors for this great report on environment and health, a topic that has not been addressed adequately, earlier in the Arab region. Something that I just remembered now, some 2,000 years ago, the Roman poet Virgil said, "The greatest wealth is health." And it seems, after reading this report, that we are really losing our wealth, not only health, unless some drastic measures are being taken by the Arab region. I would like also to thank AFID for providing us, the Arabian Gulf University, the opportunity to be part of this effort and to contribute to the report. And I'm looking forward to continued cooperation and alliance with AFID. Today, we will be having two presentations. Each will be presented in 15 minutes, hopefully. Then I will make a 5 minutes very quick talk on reflecting on COVID-19 and water supply and sanitation in the GCC experience and the lessons learned from this pandemic. Our first speaker will be Professor May Jordi from AUB. She will be talking about the water sanitation and health. That is chapter 3 of the report. And it is my pleasure to introduce May Jordi. Professor May is a professor of environmental health at the Faculty of Health Sciences of the American University of Beirut. She is active researcher in the field of water quality assessment, management, sanitation, food safety, sustainable, healthy cities and villages, and healthy school environment. Dr. May, the floor is yours for about 15 minutes. Can you talk, please? We cannot hear you. The voice, please, can you open the voice, May?
Okay, so good morning again. Today I'm going to present on behalf of my co-authors, Dr. Humana Nasser and Ms. Rola Ajib, Chapter 3 on water and sanitation in the Arab region. And I would like to thank AFID for including us in this very important effort, yearly effort. So, the first slide relates to the outline, and I wanted to send you like virtual water drops, and thank God it's raining today. So this is our story that we're telling today on water and sanitation and why we need water and sanitation. The quest for water and sanitation started in 1977 in Mar del Plaza, and it took the UN efforts 53 years to pass the resolution 64/292 that access to clean water and sanitation is a basic human right. This was adopted by the UN Human Rights Council in 2011, and they emphasized that access to safe water and sanitation is a human right. It's a right to life and a human dignity. And this is very important and very critical to understand. And this was celebrated as part of March 22, the World Water Day. And the theme was water is a human right. This was translated later into the Water for Life Decade, 2005-2015, and then the SDG 6 that we have to achieve its targets by the year 2030. Now, okay, so in 2012, the one before, please. Yes, so I'm seeing here and here. Okay, so in 2012, the Arab Water Security Strategy, it incorporated the SDG 6 agenda within it, and the 2018 adopted Arab Health and Environmental Strategy for 2017-2030. It asked countries to address priorities and challenges, risk factors relating to the provision of water and sanitation services. What happened when we were hit with the COVID-19? Hit with the COVID-19, and the SWA report shows that the increase on water demand for hand washing per person, per day, per household amounted to between 9 to 12 liters per person per day. And this increased overall 5% of what is needed just for hand washing. And this is a very modest type of an estimation. With all this modesty, the cost of 150 to 250 million additional on water per month, this is exposing 74 million people in the Arab region to a higher risk, and mostly they are in the countries of Tunisia, they're Yemen, so we have 8 countries relating to the water indicator of populations that are more exposed. In addition, you have 26 million refugees and internally displaced persons to which we have to provide water and sanitation, not to mention the occupied territories. So, hit with the COVID, it showed that the systems are fragile and not coping. Now, since we're saying this is a basic human right to health and dignity, let's find out how much it's costing us. So in Group 1 countries, the annual environmental burden of disease is 25.4 DALs per 1,000, and it's costing around 36.5 billion of the GDP. Remember that in such countries, the major environmental challenge is air pollution, then water and sanitation. Whereas when you come to Group 2 countries, the major challenge is water, and accordingly, the annual burden of disease is 39.3, and it's costing more than 60.5 billion. When we come to Group 3, the major environmental challenge is water and sanitation, and it's costing more than 140 billion, and the burden of disease is 91.4 DALs per 1,000. So this is confirmed by looking at the death, and you see the lower countries where you have a major, where you have higher death, and these are mostly in Group 3 countries. Okay, so you have these Group 3 countries. Okay, so what are we providing now? Provision of water and sanitation in the Arab countries. I've summarized them in a table. I've summarized like 7 indicators relating to drinking water, sanitation, hygiene, wastewater, water quality, and cooperation in terms of getting international funding, which is the official development assistance fund. And when you discuss water and sanitation, to add a layer of complication, it's the level of the service that is provided, whether this is a basic service or whether this is properly managed type of a service. So you see you have lots of slashes where you don't have data, and this emphasizes the deficiency in the data, and another aspect is the accuracy of the data. And this further emphasizes the need for water resource assessment, which is a major component of integrated water management. It's not just to find out how much demand we want. We want to find out what's the availability within the system and try to manage the availability, but on the other hand, manage the demand in a sustainable manner. So when you look, you find that you have lots of discrepancies. So this is Group 1. And this is the better performing groups. When you come to Group 2, you find that the performance drops, and accordingly, the provision of safely managed drinking water, it drops relatively. And remember, in some cases, it's just a basic type of a service. That is, if you want it, it's there. It's not provided at the household level. When you look into Group 3, you find the situation is very bad. You don't even have data to try to relate to. So you have lots of discrepancy. This is a major quest, and we have not achieved the provision of this basic human right. When we come to sanitation, which is the problem of the problems, which is leading to deterioration in the quality of the water, and as such, this is leading to overexploitation of groundwater supplies, you find that, okay, if it is treated, then reaching the tertiary level of treatment is relatively minimal. This means that wastewater reuse in a comprehensive scientific manner, which is safe, it's still beyond what we aspire to. And you see the yellows, and the yellows reflect on, okay, this is directly discharged. So directly discharged into either different types of ecosystems, whether this is land or water, leading to the deterioration in water quality. This is further confirmed by challenges. So what are these challenges? So the situation is not rosy. The situation is far from acceptable, except for the Group 1 countries that are relatively on track and they're trying to make a difference. For Group 2 and Group 3, especially Group 3, the situation is extremely deficient as such, the assessment, overall assessment. So what are the challenges? Some of the challenges that have been studied relates to poverty, and this multidimensional poverty index, it relates mostly to a compounded index that UN put together to track achieving the SDG 1 on poverty. And you have diagnostic studies that have showed more and more the interrelationship between poverty, especially monetary poverty, and deficient wash services. And this will be clear when you look at the countries at the lower level where you have mostly Group 3 countries. Other challenges, conflicts, and political instability. I cannot say more about this. We've been, every day, it's part of our everyday challenges surviving in the region. So these conflicts have led to damaging some part of the infrastructure in terms of water quality management, distribution networks for water, for sanitation. And when we had the Beirut blast, this also impacted the water and sanitation networks, impacted some of the reservoirs, impacted the level of the water treatment. So in addition, the region is challenged by refugees, and we have around 5 million in the region. And remember, we said that faced with COVID, this showed that the situation is highly critical and the system is highly fragile. So in addition to the political instability and conflicts, you have people that are being displaced, and accordingly, whether they are internally or externally, and they have to be accommodated. When we come to water scarcity, you see it's all red, except for one country. And this is very, very, very critical. So as such, what do? This is in terms of renewable water sources. As such, how do we provide water and maintain the quality of the water supplies if you have water scarcity and you have overexploitation? We come to the base, which is the water governance, and we've been discussing issues relating to water governance supported by funding for the last at least 20 years. So we've heard this a lot. So if you look at the components of IWRM, which is very critical and it's a process, it's not just activities, you see that the scores on the enabling environment, they're very low. So as such, this is very critical and should be addressed. So when we say enabling environment, we reflect on policies, institutional strength, legislation, implementation of legislation, and water resource assessment. Now, when we come to integrating water, sanitation, and hygiene to health, as we mentioned before, the integration is minimal. We try to tackle each component alone, and this doesn't work. And we're trying to address this through the National Health and Environment Strategy, the Arab National Health and Environment Strategy that countries have adopted. But the problem, although we have what it relates to is excellent, the issues of implementation, having countries implement and commit to the implementation. And this means you have to provide basic water requirements, safe quality, in-state water safety plans, and so on. Other factors, stakeholders' participation and mobilization. And here, when we discuss this issue, fragmented management, poor coordination, the issue of public-private partnership, privatization. So you're opening a can of worms. Political and financial commitment, how to manage transboundary water sources, what do we mean by safety, which comes first, safety or security, how much are we getting assistance, international and local. So are we progressing towards SDG 6? So with all the targets, and these targets include beyond just the provision of water and sanitation, because they include integrated management of water resources, we find that we have like more than half of the countries that will not meet unless you have major changes that will be happening and focused changes in development of the systems. So in some we are on track, so you have few greens, but the reds and oranges are much more. So this further shows that in terms of the meeting SDG 6, how much is it out of 100? And you see that we are very modest in group 3 countries and in group 2 countries in terms of reaching our targets, especially now with the additional challenge for COVID. Now, how do we sustain water and sanitation in the Arab region? So sustaining water and sanitation in the Arab region, we started with water droplets and we want running water. You have major factors that relate to this. What are these major factors? These major factors, after developing that this is not just a benefit, this is a basic human right, we want to develop systems and infrastructures that are responsive to health. So this is the lessons learned. How do we do this? We have to do it by having policy translating into strategies that are focused, short-term, intermediate, long-term, legislation, implementing legislation, strengthening infrastructure, and stop competing water use by different institutions and sectors. Water resource assessment, you cannot manage what you don't know. So in addition, having financial resources and managing them properly and reducing on the wastage in the system. How to sustain? This cannot be sustained without integrated water resources management. This is a process. It's not just having one pillar or another from IWRM. It's there. Although socioeconomic level of development is a major contributor factor, but for me, summing up, I think that the political will, setting priorities, and committing is the major challenge for our region. So I've included selective references, and we're ready for questions once we entertain them. Thank you very much, and I hope that this presentation highlighted few issues relating to water and sanitation. And as I told you, I want you to be motivated to go and read the chapter and give us feedback on the chapter, and we welcome all your feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Maith. Thank you for the excellent presentation, and also thank you for adhering to the time limit. Now we will be listening to Dr. Amr Samak and Amira Hamdan. They will be presenting the Marine Environment and Health, that is Chapter 6 of the report. And both come from the Alexandria University, which is very close to my heart. I got my BSc from Alexandria University. And I was also a colleague of Amr, probably in the first 2 years, right? So let me introduce first Professor Amr. Professor Amr is a professor of marine sciences at the Alexandria University. He served as the CEO for the Egyptian Environmental Affairs Agency, and he vice dean of and also the head of Oceanography Department, Faculty of Science at Alexandria University. He's the director of Environmental Management Program, and he used to be the director of the Environmental Management Program at the Arabian Gulf University. He also done a lot of work for KISR. He was a council member of the Global Environmental Facility, GEF, and representing Egypt as a focal point for MAP and Persiga. His co-author, Dr. Amira Hamdan, is assistant professor in marine microbiology in the Oceanography Department at the Faculty of Science, Alexandria University. She obtained her PhD from Kyushu University, Japan, in the field of marine microbiology in 2009. Since then, Dr. Hamdan has been involved in several research projects related to the use of probiotics in fish farms, bacteriocide production, biofuel production, and bioremediation of metals and petroleum hydrocarbons. She is supervisor of many master and PhD theses and publisher of reviewer and many research articles. Dr. Amr, the floor is yours in 15 minutes. You and Amira at the same time. Thank you.
طب اوكي الصوت واضح كده؟
Yeah, good. Very good.
Okay, great. So, first of all, thank you, Walid, for this introduction. And in fact, you know, it's since the geology department at Alexandria University. Yeah. And thank you, Afid, for giving us the opportunity to participate and be part of the Afid family. As I told Najib before, you know, to be a part of Afid family is an honor. So my presentation. Okay. You know, this chapter the chapter is, you know, is written by myself and my colleague Amira Hamdan. Amira Hamdan is a marine biologist. Just to give some information that, you know, marine environment and coastal marine and coastal environment with human health, they are interrelated. I mean, there is some benefit from the marine environment, like external service, marine biodiversity, fresh water, and in the meantime, there is some impact in pollution, biological hazards, and others. And there is, I don't know why it is, you know, just flipped like that. I don't know. Anyhow, this is only for the first 3 years. So the last slide is showing that there is a relation between SDGs 3 and SDGs 14, which is health and the marine environment, especially on the target 14.1, where they mentioned that by 2025 there should be some control on the land-based pollution. Of course, you know, there is a diversity in the marine and coastal environment along the different, you know, Arab country, because we have 3 regional seas: Mediterranean Sea, Red Sea, and the Red Sea area. In addition to the Arabian Sea and Indian Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, there's also diversity in the economy and in the urbanization, which in fact which impact, you know, or the different impact between, or the relation between environment and marine is really. Now I'll just give you some the stressor and the impact on the coastal area and health impact in the Arab region. We have 4 main stressors. The first one, the extensive coastal development, especially on the GC country and other countries like UAE and Bahrain and other countries. And this, of course, impacts the coastal area by loss of coastal habitat, impact on the biodiversity, and, of course, has some health impact, which is impact on the human well-being, decreased public access, and many others. The other stressor is land-based sources, and of course, the hydrocarbon, metal pollution, microbial pollution, and harmful algae are among the impact on the coastal area, and this will impact the health through diseases and food contamination, deaths, and the impact on freshwater extraction. The next one is debris pollution, and this is a new field, but in fact, you know, it's impact on biodiversity and visual impact, and lots of recreational activity and civil contamination. The climate change, as everyone knows, is a cross-cutting issue, but the impact on the coastal area, like extreme event, and in fact, you know, this will have a healthy impact. And we, during the last few years, we face many of the extremes. Visit Saturn Ayman. We will only touch 3 or 4 issues. That is land-based source and microbial pollution, and harmful algal bloom, coastal debris, and microplastics. And of course, we will related all of this with the seafood contamination. So if we start with the land-based source, there's the 3 main land-based sources in the Arab region. The first is sewage domestic outfall, industrial outfall, and desalination plant. The type of pollution which is produced from each of these sources includes some heavy metal, petroleum hydrocarbon, and desalination plant is one of the one of the mega issue in the Arab region, especially in the Arabian Gulf and Red Sea. And of course, you know, the thermal pollution and brine, in addition to the organic matter and heavy metal, are the type of pollution. But for example, anthropogenic organic carbon, the Arabian Gulf is ranked among the most heavily impacted region, receiving high input of petroleum hydrocarbon, including TBHs and BHs. But in the metal pollution, most of the study recorded that that the metal is within the concentration of acceptable level of sediment quality guideline. If we related the source, the main sources, with the main environmental and health impact, we will find that, you know, the 3 have related or have some impact on water deterioration and seafood contamination, and of course, you know, some of them in the desalination, it will impact also fishery loss and others. If we speak about the HAB or harmful algal bloom, most of the Arab country facing some HAB phenomena. The HAB phenomena, as everyone know, is a bloom of phytoplankton such as dinoflagellates, diatoms, and cyanobacteria. And this bloom will deplete oxygen and block sunlight that other organisms need to live and produce toxin. If we look to the HAB and the human impact, you will see that the scenario or the story of that is increasing nutrient will increase algal growth faster. This will make an algal bloom, and algal bloom will make some sunlight, some of the sunlight, and both of them will lead to die of algae or some of plant, which is due to bacteria, will and through respiration will decrease oxygen, and if the amount of oxygen decreases, dissolved oxygen, this will lead to some death of ecosystem. But not only this, the algae produce some kind of toxin that will transfer to the human through the food web. Of course, you know, the health, economy, health, and environment nexus. We will see that human and human can be impacted through toxin or other organism toxin in the environment. It will impact turbidity, deoxidation, and biodiversity. But in the economy of also, you know, it will impact the tourism, culture, fishery, and desalination. The consumption of any seafood affected by algal toxin may cause 5 type of syndrome, seafood positioning syndrome. This is paralytic, neurotoxic, amantic, and diuretic. In the Rocky Sea area, 337 phytoplankton has been identified, 58 was identified as harmful algal species. 23 out of
عندنا مشكلة صوت.
It seems a bad connection from Ms. Amira Hamdan. So just to let you know.
Okay. Sharbal, you will take care of this?
Dr. Amr, can you speak now?
I speak.
Yeah.
It's okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. One of the catastrophic events is 2829. 0809 red tide, which is about 8 months bloom between 2008 and 2009 of dinoflagellate, and it kills thousands of tons of fish. It affects, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Ajman, Fujairah, and Akban, and also it forced some closure of desalination plant and damaged coral reef. If you go to the microbial pollution, you will find that microbial pollution that it has threat to the human by contaminating seafood, drinking water, and the swimming area. We can divide the sewage treatment around the Arab country into 3 levels of treatment. GC is have high level of treatment and reuse. Egypt, Morocco, or Jordan, Iraq, and Syria has a moderate level, but there is some country has low level of treatment. For the microplastics, of course, the microplastics is defined as the piece is less than 5 millimeter, and of course it block and injure animal digestive tract. The microplastic range from mega plastics to the nanoplastics.
We have only 4 minutes left. 4 minutes left.
Okay. Some marine microplastic, you can see that Egypt is one of the main contributors of the plastic in the Mediterranean region, and you can see from this table that there is some very old study like Hosni al-Khardagi from 1994 until now. In the Rob CS, the polypropylene is the most important contributor of microplastics. The interlinkage between just to give you some information that it can be about health risk assessment and exposure. Most of the study is exposure assessment and study the human exposure. For the marine pollution and seafood, we can see that the GCC country has the highest fish consumption. And of course, the regular monitoring of heavy metals will be very important in the health spot area to reduce the seafood consumption. We study the fish example, so what we call the weekly intake, which is average quantity and concentration of metal in the fish, and daily intake. You can see that it's different from different species. But if we study also the indices, you will find that for mercury, for example, the fisherman, which is usually used seafood consumer, is not comparing to the other one, and in a normal there is no difference between female and male. Just to conclusion and recommendation. That among the stressor is the coastal development, land-based sources of pollution, coastal marine debris, oil pollution. They are carp represent 4% of the total oil species in the world. Most of the relevant study concludes that heavy metals is in the allowable concentration and pose no threats to the public health. Research on the linkage between marine environment and human health must be explored. Direct impact on the human, the benefits of marine environment to the health, such as antimicrobial drug and the antimicrobial activity, marine bacteria should be taken into account, and governance and strength regional cooperation are the main pillar to achieve SDGs. And thank you.
شكرا دكتور عام. شكرا. انت يعني خلصت حتى المحاضره قبل الوقت اللي عندك دقيقه لفت، فخلينا نستفيد منها في الاسئله والاجوبه. شكرا.
You told me that you have one minute.
يعني نجيب طلب مني ان انا اعطي فكره بس سريعه عن تجربه دول مجلس التعاون في التعامل مع كوفيد 19 واهم التحديات اللي واجهت دول المجلس، واعتقد انه ممكن الاستفاده منها مع الدول العربيه الاخرى يعني، واهم الدروس المستفاده. يعني مثل غيرها من القطاعات تاثر قطاع تزويد مياه الشرب والصرف الصحي بجائحه كورونا. واثناء هذه الجائحه تم عقد العديد من الورش العمل من قبل الامانه العامه للتعرف على اهم التحديات والدروس المستفاده التي ممكن يعني مبادلتها بين دول مجلس التعاون. قام بهذا الشيء زميلي في المساهمه اللي هو دكتور محمد فلاح رشيدي مدير اداره الكهرباء والماء في الامانه العامه، وراح استعرض بشكل سريع جدا اهم التحديات اللي واجهت دول مجلس التعاون في التعامل مع الجائحه في قطاع الصرف الصحي ومياه الشرب. اول تحدي كان هو تحدي الموارد البشريه، طبعا بسبب الحظر اللي حصل وتقييد الحركه كان هناك نوع من الارتباك في الهيومن ريسورسز، ولكن مع الوقت تم تجاوز هذا الوضع باعتبار يعني باعلان ان الموظفين المياه هم essential workers، يعني لهم حريه الحركه والتنقل اثناء الحظر، وكذلك تم استخدام العمل عن بعد ونسبه 20-80% اللي هي 20% في المكاتب و80% يعملون من البيوت. كان هناك ايضا قلق بالنسبه لقضيه سلامه المياه، هل ممكن ان ينتقل الفيروس في مياه الشرب وكذلك في مياه الصرف الصحي المعالجه التي يعاد استخدامها وتؤثر على الاغذيه وايضا على العاملين في قطاع الصرف الصحي. والحمد لله يعني تم التاكد ان جميع الاجراءات التي يتم عملها في دول مجلس التعاون خصوصا ان هي كلها تيرشري تريتمنت وايضا الديسانفكشن في المياه الشرب يعني كفيله بالقضاء على هذا الفيروس في 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 انظمه مياه في انظمه المياه اللي عندنا. ناتي الى قضيه جدا كانت مهمه ويعني كان سببت قلق كبير اللي هي قطع الغيار والمواد المستهلكه. مثل يعني للاسف ما زالت صناعه التحليه بالرغم من وجودها في المنطقه من اكثر من 60 عام ما زالت هي تقنيه مستورده، وبالتالي يعني يتم الاستيراد العديد من قطع الغيار وايضا المواد المستهلكه بسبب يعني من الخارج، وبسبب اغلاق الحدود او بسبب توقف المصانع نفسها فكان هناك يعني المخزون القطع الغيار ومخزون المواد المستهلكه كان هناك قلق انه هو ينفد مع استمرار الجائحه، والحمد لله مع الوقت يعني بدات الامور هذه، ولكن هنا في شيء يعني اساسي انه هو في يجب ان ننظر لها بمنظور استراتيجي وراح اتكلم عنه في نهايه المداخله هاي. الموضوع الاخير اللي هو يعني موضوع اعتقد انه هو جدا مهم، انه هو بسبب بقاء العديد من الافراد والسكان في منازلهم صار هناك في استهلاك اكبر للمياه وايضا انتاج لمياه الصرف الصحي اكثر من اللازم، مما سبب ضغط على البنيه التحتيه وامكانيات التزويد وامكانيات المعالجه في دول مجلس التعاون. وهذا طبعا وايضا هناك كان في اختلاف في اوقات الذروه بسبب بقاء الحظر المنزلي للناس. للاسف لم تنظر دول مجلس التعاون الى جانب اداره الطلب، مع انها يعني ركزت على جانب اداره العرض وزياده المتاح من موارد مائيه، لكن لم تنظر الى جانب الطلب ومشاركه الجمهور في المحافظة على المياه أو تقليل استهلاكهم في المياه أثناء بقائهم في بيوتهم. أهم الدروس المستفادة هي درسين أساسيين أعتقد أن احنا يجب أن يعني جميع دول العالم العربي تستطيع الاستفادة منهم. أولا يجب توطين تقنيات التحلية والمعالجة في المنطقة بشكل أساسي، يعني الاستمرار في استيراد هذه التقنية واعتمادك عليها بهذا الشكل في تزويد مياه الشرب هو خطر أمني، يعني يجب التعامل معه بتوطين هذه التقنيات. والجانب الآخر يجب أن نبتعد عن جانب إدارة العرض وتوفير الموارد والنظر إلى الجانب الآخر اللي هو أسهل وأقل تكلفة، اللي هو جانب إدارة الطلب على المياه ومشاركة المستخدمين في هذه. النقطة الأخيرة اللي أحب بس أنوه لها قبل يعني أنهي، أنه هو في جانب البحث العلمي حصل تطور جدا ممتاز من قبل الجامعات في المنطقة. أحدى الجامعات اللي هي جامعة خليفة في الإمارات قامت بتطوير طريقة أو بروتوكول للكشف عن فيروس كوفيد في مياه الصرف الصحي قبل طبعا معالجتها وهي في الطريق، واستخدام هذا الكشف لتحديد المناطق السكنية الموبوءة التي ممكن تكون موبوءة بهذه، وبالتالي يعني إخبار وزارة الداخلية ووزارة الصحة عن تفشي هذا الفيروس هذه. ويعني الحصول على هذا البروتوكول من قبل جامعة في المنطقة كان هو شيء جدا يعني مفرح لنا، ان احنا الان نساهم ايضا في عمليه التعامل مع هذه الجهه. هذا ما لدي يعني بالنسبه حق هذا الشيء. والان نبدا الاسئله والاجوبه يعني للمحاضرتين التي تقدمها. فرجاء يعني اذا كان ممكن يما تكتب او يرفع يد الشخص، واعتقد ان شربل راح ياخذ باله من الاسئله الموجهه. المجال مفتوح للاسئله.
Thank you, Dr. Walid. We have a question now. You will receive it by chat.
I don't have anything on my chat.
One second.
إذا كان okay. From Dr. Sadiq from Kuwait, he's asking Dr. Samak whether discharging treated and untreated sewage in the sea is a major cause of the red bloom as it decreases level of nutrients in seawater. فعندنا سؤال للدكتور سماك من دكتور صادق من الكويت يسأل عن هل صرف المياه المعالجة أو غير المعالجة ممكن يؤدي إلى الألقى البلوغ الحاف. دكتور سماك. دكتور سماك ممكن تجاوب؟
يعني اكيد طبعا اللي هو الانتريتد سيوج بالانجليزي هيكون تاثير اللي هو زياده البكتيريا، وفي نفس الوقت برضه اذا كان المصدر بتاع اجريكلتشر هيزود النيوترينت، وان بوث كيسز هيؤدي الى مشكله كبيره، بالذات لو كان اجريكلتشر هيؤدي الى اريتايد. فده الحقيقه اكيد طبعا untreated sewage is one of the major land-based sources of pollution في الدول العربية، وخصوصا ان
دكتور عمرو you are off. دكتور عمرو your voice is off. Your mic is off. دكتور عمرو.
Dr. Samak, if you fix your microphone, because we don't know, you are talking from a microphone which is off, so maybe we can move somewhere else and come back to you.
Okay. في سؤال آخر أيضا. أنا يعني في حد عنده سؤال؟
أنا إذا بتسمح لي حضرة مدير الجلسة علق على هالموضوع بالذات، لأنه سؤال شفته أنا كتير مهم. بالكويت أنا بعرف في كمية كبيرة من المجارير، يعني مياه الصرف، حتى بعد معالجتها ترمى في البحر معظمها في الماضي. ففي فكرة انه بعد معالجتها على اي درجة من المعالجة معليش كان به اذا رميت في البحر. المشكلة انه لما كميات كبرى عم ترمى في البحر حتى معالجة بتزيد كمية المغذيات النيوتريانس بالمي، وهيدا مع الحرارة العالية عم تعمل مشاكل طحالب الى اخره. فاذا يعني منيح التنبيه، وكان بالماضي في معارضة لاستعمال مياه الصرف المعالجة بالري. يمكن منقول ما تستعملها بري الخضار يلي الناس بدها تاكلها، ولكن كنا دائما نقول وانتم بتعرفوا مثل ما عم بيصير بكتير دول خليجية حاليا استعمال مياه الصرف المعالجة لري الحدائق في المدن، ري الاشجار. وفي حالة ثانية انك بتقدر انك تستعمل مياه الصرف المعالجة بعد معالجتها زراعة غابات في الصحراء. عندك المياه موجودة تستعملها بشيء افضل ما ترميها بالبحر. بفتكر هيدي الفكرة منيح نوصلها اذا
اعتقد اذا تسمح.
صوتك دكتور عمرو.
معلش هو حصل هنا كويس. تمام، اذا تسمح لي. طبعا هي المشكله دي في الكويت الحقيقه دي كبيره، او بشكل بيبقى في اماكن محدده زي مبرور الغزالي. وطبعا كان في اللي هي مشكله مشرف اللي كانت 2000 في اول الالفينات، مش 2010 تقريبا او 2008 مش فاكر بالظبط الوقت، لما حصل اللي هو فيل للبمب وكانت مشكله كبيره واتقفلت الشاطئ. بس حته استخدام اللي هي السيوج في مصر عندنا دايما بيبقى جنب المحطات بنسمي في حاجه اسمها الغابه الشجريه، اللي هي بتستخدم لعمل اللي هي غابه شجريه بتستفيد من الاشجار بتاعتها. دي دايما مرتبطه ب
انا ما قادر اسمع صوت. في عندنا مشكله معك دكتور عمرو، عندنا مشكله مع الصوت، ما يعني
تمام كده.
اوكي.
فطبعا في دلوقتي تطويل هنا السليبيخات، في نوع من التطويل للسيوج اوت فول بالذات اللي هي زي اللي هي غزالي اوت فول. شكرا.
انا بس احب انوه على موضوع معين. يعني طبعا احنا عندنا نقص كبير في الدراسات، يعني ويمكن دكتور عمرو واميره يعني ركزوا، ويمكن انا شفت هذا الكلام موجود في اكثر من موقع في الشابتر اللي هم عدوه، انهم يعني يقولون there is no data, there is no studies. بالفعل انا يعني شايف انه قضايا مثل المايكرو بلاستكس والهيدروكربونز، يعني في عندنا نقص كبير بالنسبه حق انه العلاقه بين التلوث وبالنسبه حق صحه الانسان. فالانفايرمنت هيلث انترفيس عندنا في المنطقه يعني جدا ضعيف. فيمكن ونفس الشيء بالنسبه لك دكتوره مي، يعني احنا عندنا الدراسات العلاقه بين الصحه والبيئه اللي هو الانفايرمنتال هيلث ستاديز، وتحديد العلاقه بين الكوز اند افكت اوف ذس بوليوتنت تو ذس. اي ثينك انه هو فيري يعني عندنا شورتج في هذه. فممكن نسمع وجهه نظركم، يعني دكتوره مي الاول وبعد دكتوره عمرو بالنسبه للموضوع الدراسات وتركيزها وفي اي اتجاه يجب ان تكون، لان كثير منكم يتكلم عن يعني كثير في مواقع من الشابتر يقول لك there is no studies, there is no evidence. فبليز مي اذا ممكن.
اكيد البروبلم انه الريبورتنج تبع الداتا ان terms of disease فيها كثير deficiency اصلا، خصوصا لما نحكي مثلا بالواش عن diarrheal diseases و they lump together water and food. بعدين مونيتورينج لتعرف الديتيريوريشن واللي عم بتصير كمان اتس deficient. بعد لتعمل انت ريليشن شيب وتشوف انه الكوزاليتي هذا اللي عم بيكون الصعب. يعني عم بينعمل بسمولر ستادي فور ا شورتر بيريد اوف تايم، بفتكر لازمنا اكسبوجر ستاديز اللي هي كثير مهمه. the issue انه هذا مش موجود، لانه نحن عم نعتبر بعدنا عم نشتغل اي سيرفيس، اكتيفيتي هون اكتيفيتي هون، مش عم نشتغلها انت ريليشن. حتى الواش في الكومبوننت تبع الواش عم ناخذه لوحده، نشتغل على الووتر لوحده، على السانيتيشن لوحده، بعده الهيجين اصلا لاكي. بدنا نشتغل عليهم ثلاثتهم سوا as one unit. We have to report the output اللي هو الديزيز as a unit. Try to find out what is happening. هيدي الميسنج لينك اللي كثير صعبه، مشان هيك بنقول we cannot determine the causality وبنقول okay it's relating to all environmental deterioration which is easier to determine. مش
سؤالي تكمله اللي قلتيه الان. لما انا باخذ القيم بتاعت الدالي I'm taking the measures of DALI from WHO and this is the aerial. Is this really related to the water ولا ممكن يكون any food poisoning؟ يعني انا I am assuming it is related to water and sanitation but maybe it's not.
Yes, خصوصا انه هن they lump them together. مثلا reporting it's water and food. هيدا complicates issues. مع انه لانه نحن مثلا اذا في عندنا دايريا وهيك it's self limiting، ما حدا بيروح عند الحكيم ستارت.
اوكي.
reporting is minimal، يعني ببلش السيستم من اول وبروح بياخذ بيشرب في سكورات وذاتس and unless they are children less than 5 وفي الهيلث كير سنترز وبياخذوهم، والا it's not being reported. هيدا الديفيشنسي المهم.
دكتور عمرو ممكن تفيدنا بالنسبه حق عدم وجود البيانات وما هي الدراسات التي يجب ان يتم عملها والتركيز عليها في الفتره القادمه؟
الحقيقه اثناء كتابه الشابتر ده وجدنا ان فعلا في نقص كتير جدا في البيانات، وبالذات اللي هي مرتبطه بالريسك او الهيومن هيلث. دايما الدراسات بتقف عند نقطه معينه. على سبيل المثال اللي هو الحرم.
أميرة لو تسكرين الصوت عندك، لو تسكرين الصوت أميرة. I think when you switch it on he gets off. أميرة ميوت بليز.
كده تمام؟
اوكي.
فلما بنلاقي مثلا للهاب كلها بتوصل لمرحله اللي هو كميه الفيش كيل، كميه التاثير، لكن تاثيرها الدايركت بقى على الانسان الحقيقه تقريبا مش موجوده. لما نيجي نبص مثلا على المايكرو بلاستكس هنلاقي على الرغم ان احنا ابتدينا سنه 96 بحسن خردجي، لكن لحد الان كل الدراسات سكاترز، مفيش دراسات بتوضح. هتلاقي في تونس شغالين على الميثايل ميركوري واشتغلوا كبحث، معظم البلاد ما فيهاش دراسات متكامله، فبالتالي عندنا سكاتر، ومعظم الدراسات او تقريبا غالبيتها بتقف عند مستوى معين اللي هو قبل ما توصل للانسان. يعني الفيش لكن ربطه بقى هل ده بيأثر على صحة الإنسان؟ قد إيه بيحصل توكسيك من الهارم في القلب؟ في كم واحد حصل له داس أو اتأثر بالهارم في القلب بلوم؟ الحقيقة دي تقريبا مش موجودة. عشان كده الدراسات تقريبا بتقف عند
عندي سؤال من احمد الشاذلي من مصر، بيقول يعني can we integrate the sessions topic in the ocean decade 2021 to 2030 action plan? I could not understand the question, but maybe you understand it. Can you just elaborate on this? We have only 2 minutes. We have 2 minutes.
هو الحقيقه طبعا معروف ان اليونايتد نيشن حاطط اللي هي من 2021 لحد 2030 اللي هو بيسموها الاوشن ديكيد. فاكيد طبعا ان احنا وكان ندور على مشاريع معينه تقدر ان هي تعمل انتجريشن، سواء الانتجريشن ده كانتري انتجريشن او ريجنال انتجريشن او انتجريشن within different topics وساينتفك topics. فاكيد ممكن جدا ان احنا كمان نعرضه على اللي هو اليونسكو والاوشن ديكيت من المشاريع اللي هي عرضوها دلوقتي.
شكرا عمرو. اخيرا يعني احب قبل ان انهي احب اشكر المتحدثين معي. Thank you for your presentation. عمرو Amira, thank you for your presentation, and thank you for all the participants and for the questions that we received. And the floor is yours, Najib.
شكرا جزيلا لكم جميعا. Thank you all for participating, and apologize from our participants from some technical glitches in Ain Shams University in Egypt. But the content was good, although it was hard sometimes to understand some parts of the interventions.